Good evening. It is Friday, February the 20th, about 9:45 p.m. My name is Shay Gibson, and this is the Chucktown Wind Report brought to you by Wind Alert. So let's go ahead and talk about winds and weather for tomorrow and Monday. And looking at the surface map right now, we have this Atlantic high pressure. This is more or less what we call a dirty high because of all the cloud cover and troughing going on around the center of it. The ridge is flattened out to the south over northern Florida and all the way across into the Gulf. And we have some troughing wrapping around, and this is all coming from the subtropical jet peeling up from the Pacific across Texas and over our area and all the way up into this clipper up here to the north. So lots of overhead clouding. We saw that today. We saw overcast skies, but we did see the sun and drier air sort of break through that along the coastline, and we saw a little pulse of winds today. So as far as tomorrow, we do have a southwesterly flow above that ridge axis that's going to be in place through tomorrow, and if we get any periods of sunshine and drier air along our coastline to couple with some sea breezing effects, we could see those numbers come up. So I'm going to go ahead and call for about 10 to 14 knots along the beaches tomorrow, and we'll say a chance for 14 to 18 knots to develop where some of those pockets of sunshine and abundance of sunshine and drier air are able to prevail over just along the beaches. Now, inside the harbor, we may see some higher numbers just because the air temperatures during those periods of sunshine are supposed to climb up to near 65 or 70 inland, and that's an overall air temperature, so that means we could see some slight marine layering along the beaches. So if the air temps do climb, we may see the winds back down on the beaches but actually come up in the harbor, where we could be looking at a situation of 9 to 13 knots on beaches and then 15 to 20 knots in the harbor. So it gets pretty tricky, and we'll have to watch the sensors and watch the setup for tomorrow as we go in. Now, as we go to Monday, we have a cold front that's going to be approaching the east coast, and this is going to start increasing the chance of rain as it couples with this mid-level clouding and starts to develop some lower-level clouding along with it up from the Gulf of Mexico, where that moisture starts to blend in. So we may actually start to get things messy on Monday with some increased chance of rains, especially later in the afternoon to the evening, and it could be a washout. But we may see some overnight nocturnal jetting both nights because it is just far enough ahead of the front. We do have this subtropical jet up high, and then tomorrow with that westerly flow, we actually have return flow available for the sea breeze circulations to work. So that could be another factor in getting the winds up tomorrow. But Monday, we look like we could be lower on the winds, maybe 9 to 13 knots in general, and possibly 11 to 15 in the harbor on the southwest. Continued southwest or maybe even west-southwest flow as that frontal boundary makes it down into the area. So let's go ahead and take a look at Datascope for Charleston, what's going on right now. And we see some higher numbers right now. This is what we call nocturnal jetting at nighttime, where I just discussed where we have an inversion going on in the atmosphere ahead of a frontal boundary. There's some warmer air surging in along that. Nighttime, it sort of comes down closer to the surface, and it allows for a layer of stronger winds to develop. So we have southwest 13 to 14 knots at Isle Palms Pier, and 9 to 10 at Folly Beach, and 15 to 17 in the harbor. This could be indicative of what's going to happen tomorrow. It never is quite the precursor for it, but sometimes these numbers tend to be a little bit on the similar side. So that's what's going on for the Charleston area right now. Let's take a look at the details, and I'm going to zoom in on this screen. And here's some of the modeling guidance that we have going on for tomorrow. Now, the HER 3K is the highest resolution model that we have, and by 11 a.m. it only goes out so far because it is such high resolution. We see about 10 or 11 knots, and starting up from the south-southwest. So the more south-southwest we go, the more that we see the sea breeze coupling. If it's just straight southwest to west-southwest, it may just be on that general flow from the high pressure. It's going to be very tricky. Let's watch hour to hour tomorrow and see how that goes, and then see what the total numbers are actually coming in around noontime when the peak heating begins. So the Wave Watch 3 model carries it a little bit higher, and then the other models keep it lower, anywhere from 9 to about 14 knots. So here's our outlook for the next few days. Here's Sunday at about 13 to 18 knots, and this is GFS model run. The winds come down on Monday just along that cold front approach from the west, where the moisture profile increases, and then high tide tomorrow is going to be at 12:56 p.m. Sea surface temperatures are about 51 degrees, maybe 52, especially after today's warmth. And that's going to do it for the Chucktown Wind Report winds for tomorrow and Monday. All right, the next part of this, I want to talk a little bit further ahead of time and some of the details and some of the meteorological aspects of what's going on in the atmosphere. So here's our eastern visible loop, and you can see the subtropical jet peeling those clouds across over through the southeast and then up around that clipper that's over Quebec right now. So this frontal boundary is going to be a slow mover. It's going to take its time getting through because it's laying right along that subtropical jet, and then it's going to sort of lay more diagonal as time goes on, and then we're going to see an Arctic surge move in by midweek. So here's the sounding analysis for right now, what's going on over Charleston. Here's the, let me click on the Charleston. Here's our inversion right here. Let me go ahead and get the marker out. Here's our lower level inversion, and it's actually a little bit higher up than normal. Sometimes we see these inversions a little bit lower down where that warm nose is occurring, and these winds here about 20 knots overall for that low level jet that's happening. And then as we go further up, we see where the subtropical jet starts to pick up at about 325 millibars and goes all the way up to 200, and it's anywhere from 70 to 90 knots. So that actual west to east return flow may be able to help the sea breeze circulations with some of that rising, some of the rising thermals. If the air temperatures come up tomorrow, some of that onshore flow could help the thermals rise and then pull back around into the circulation. So we'll wait and see what happens. Here's our ADS temperatures, winds for low level jetting, looking at 3,000 feet here, and we got about 20 to 25 knots. And as we go into time, we see those winds start to increase a little bit along our area, about 20, 25 knots, and as time goes on, they start to relax as we get into tomorrow night. So tomorrow day, looks like we have a little bit of a shot at some low level jetting helping to carry those winds up along the beaches, especially if the temperatures stay on the lower side. We could be looking at 60 to 65 degrees. I did want to take a quick look at the temperature forecast for tomorrow, and let's see what the models are generally saying. So there's a lot of disagreement. The HER3K is bringing the temperatures down, keeping it down to the 50s. That could be in association with cloud cover. And then these other models are bringing up to 62, 63, all the way up into the mid 60s, especially along the beaches. The HER3 is also it's also starting to pick up on some of those nuances along the coastline. So the onshore flow from over the cooler water, keeping the air temperatures down. So that's a good thing if that model's starting to catch those small nuances. Going back to this at 3,000 feet, if we go to 15,000 feet, we see the jet increased, and then as we get into Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, we see the jet kind of pulse along with that cold front that pulls through. Animation jet stream, let's go ahead and look at, let me stop right there. Here we are right now, and here's the subtropical jet peeling up across the country, and here it goes again. And then we start to see this dip in the jet stream from the polar jet coming down again by Wednesday early morning at 1 a.m. and then here's by 1 p.m. It's really coming down over the Arkansas area, and then it reaches us by Thursday early morning. So that's when we're going to see our next surge. It's going to be Wednesday afternoon, Thursday, and then we'll see temperatures really drop down. So here's our GFS model. And if we put this into motion, let's go ahead and take this on out. Here comes low pressure just to our west on Wednesday, and that could give some wintry weather up to the northeast, and that's going to be following that dip in the jet stream. You can see the blue lines here, the 534 and the 540, which is the freezing line. This is where that cold Arctic blast is going to come down, and then it's going to push across the country and make it into our area by Thursday early morning. We'll be feeling those cold temperatures, and then it clears out fairly quickly. These numbers start to come back up again as we get into Saturday and Sunday. We start to see the warm layer make it back up into our area. So as far as winds go, I think maybe Wednesday or Thursday we could see some very strong westerly winds post-frontal just behind the exit of this low pressure right here. Once this clears out, and then we have high pressure developing over the Gulf of Mexico, that could really push a strong westerly wind into our area with some of those cooler temperatures, and that's what this is looking like for Thursday at least. So we'll see what happens then. Until then, that's going to finish it up for the entirety of the Chucktown Wind Report, and I'll try to get back on tomorrow or Monday to do an update for the rest of the week. Until then, take care, and I'll see you soon.